Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If it's your first time here, hi, my name is Jess. Welcome. So I did a little Amazon shopping earlier this week and I ordered some bookish things that I want to share with you guys, and I also want to set up said new things on my bookshelf. Which, speaking of my bookshelf, it definitely needs to get dusted because I have not cleaned or touched that thing since I bought it back in December. So I know without a doubt that there is a layer of invisible dust just sitting on every single shelf. That will for sure be dealt with before I set up any of the new stuff, and I'll also be reorganizing some of the books on my shelves, and so I thought that we could do all of this together. So if you are curious to see what bookish things I got on Amazon and are interested in getting a bookshelf tour, then let's jump right into it. So first order of business is the haul. Like I said, everything I ordered is book related, and these items in particular are in relation to the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros. And the reason for this is because I want to have a dedicated moment on my bookshelf for this series because it has become one of my favorite series. The only other book series on my shelf that has its own decorated, dedicated area is the ACOTAR series. That is my baby. That is my number one. Although I will say that the Empyrean series is pretty dang close and is in second place. So with all of that said, I knew that I wanted a dragon, either figurine or plushie of sorts, to represent the series. And as I was browsing on Amazon, I came across one that I thought couldn't have been more perfect. So this is a little dragon that I got, and it's so adorable. The fact that it's giving us the middle finger is so funny to me. I feel like it displays Andarna's feisty attitude so well, and the fact that it's a black dragon is the cherry on top because that is the color that she chooses to appear as, but the dragon could also represent Terran as well. My mind just automatically went to Andarna. So the figurine is under $15 and it's 3¼ inches tall. They do have a 5-inch version that's under $25, I think, and I was flip-flopping between which size I should get. I ultimately went with the smaller one, and I'm actually really happy with the size of it, and I'm so excited to put it up on my shelf. Next, I got a second copy of Onyx Storm, and the reason for this is because I love the sprayed edges of this book, and I really want to be able to display this up on my shelf. But then I also want to be able to see the spine of the book when it's lined up with book 1 and 2. And another thing, I am a book tabbing kind of reader, and I wasn't able to do so in the way that I liked with my first copy because I didn't want to mess up the appearance of these sprayed edges. So now I can just have this one and keep it in pristine condition and showcase these sprayed edges. And with my first copy, I can go back in and just tab away at my heart's desire. I know that this is all so extra, but I can be a little extra sometimes. And the last thing I got is the official Fourth Wing journal. The outside has the well-known quote that Xaden tells Violet in chapter 7 of Fourth Wing, and the inside of it looks like this. I like the pop of red and the illustrations on the inside. The very back looks the exact same, and the pages in the journal are lined, and there's also 9 pages with quotes sprinkled throughout the journal. And then lastly, the spine of the book just looks like this. It has a little golden dragon in the middle and then the publisher's logo at the very bottom. So that's it for the haul. I know that it wasn't much, but it's just what I needed to create a little something for this series on my shelf. So now let's get on to clearing off and cleaning off the bookshelf. Alrighty, so the shelves are cleaned off and free of dust. Now comes the fun part, which is reorganizing, and I guess I'll simultaneously give you guys a bookshelf tour as I go. Since the very top of the bookshelf is clear, apart from the faux plant that's right here, I'm thinking that this will be the most ideal spot for the Empyrean series to go, but let it be known that my favorite series of all time isn't going up on the top shelf because I like to be able to see the small trinkets that I have from this series, and there's also a few other reasons that I'll show you once I get to to it. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Putting the Empyrean series up here on this shelf just makes the most sense. So let's start there and work our way down. So this fake plant and pot is actually going to be serving two purposes. The first purpose is that it's decorative, and the second is that it's actually going to be acting as one of my bookends. I do not have any bookends, so I'm working with what I got. All right, so I'm just going to line up the books, and this is exactly what I mean by being able to see the spines of all three of them. It just looks so much more cohesive. If it would have been turned around this way, it would just look incomplete, at least in my eyes. That is why I felt the need to get another copy. Speaking of which, let us put the second copy on the shelf. There goes. It looks so good. I'm so freaking excited already, and it's not even done yet. But now I need another bookend. And like I said, I'm working with what I got. So I went looking around my house and I found a candle that I actually don't light and I never really use. It's just kind of sitting there. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually going to use this as a bookend. And it is a big candle. It is very heavy and it's called Warm Leather and Amber. Couldn't have been more fitting if you ask me. So that's going to go right there. It's going to hold that book up because I don't particularly care to see the candle. I'm going to cover it with the journal. So I'm going to place the journal right here, right in front of it. That's looking so good already. We're going to just add the final touch with the little dragon right here on the end. And I think that does it for the Empyrean shelf. All right, so now I'm going to put back the books that were on the shelf and then just see what I'm working with. Okay, so here's what the shelf is looking like. And as you can see, there's some extra space up here, and that's obviously because we moved up the Empyrean series. So now that I have some extra room to work with, I think that I'm actually going to maybe take some of these books down. Well, really, I only see one that I want to move down, and that's Phantasma. And the reason for this is because most of these have more or one book in the series. This one's the only one that's kind of like a standalone, although I know it's not a standalone. The second book is coming out this year. So now that I no longer have that book here, it gives me a good amount of space to be able to put some more books here or one book facing forward. And I already have one in mind. I just finished reading Quicksilver and I really enjoyed that book. And I kind of want to put that one up here on the shelf. I literally just took down Phantasma because I was like, it's the only standalone, yada yada. What am I going to do? Put another standalone up here. But you know what? I don't care. It's my bookshelf. I make the rules. So here I grabbed Quicksilver and I want to put Quicksilver like this, I'm thinking. I think that will look cool. If you guys didn't know, I actually found this out by accident. It has reversible sleeves. I thought that was the coolest thing. But I guess for now, Kingfisher can stay. Okay, so I really like the way that this is looking. If I could make one change, it would be to just make Powerful by Lauren Roberts a full-size book. I get the idea, the concept behind making it a smaller book, but it just doesn't look well when it's lined up with the rest of the books. Although I did see a few months ago that they had a like regular sized version, one that matched Powerless and Reckless, and I was going to get it, but then my financially responsible self was like, you don't need it. You already have it, she says, with 2 copies of Onyx Storm. But I digress. I'm pretty happy with this shelf. I think it looks good. If only Powerful were a full size, but you know what? It's okay. We're going to leave you there because I just don't have it in me to separate a series. But before we move on to the next shelf, let me just give you guys a little tour of the books that I have right here. So most of these are fantasy romance, which is my #1 favorite genre. I love fantasy romance. So first we have Quicksilver by Callie Hart, which again, I just read, really enjoyed. I do recommend. Next, we have the series from Lauren Roberts. I have Powerless, Powerful, and Reckless. So excited for the 3rd book in the series to come out. I believe it comes out in April of this year. The next book series is the Lightlark series. So I have book 1, book 2, and book 3. These are by Alex Astor. Next to that, I have the Infatuated Fae series by Janine O'Reilly. I don't know why I thought that this was going to be a 3-book series, Then when I got to the end of the third book, it said to be continued in book 4, and I was like, wait a second. I thought I was done with this, but I guess not. And then next to that, I have 2 books from Carissa Broadbent, first being The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and then The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. And then these last 2 books are actually books that I haven't read yet. They are on my TBR. Speaking of which, I do need to flip these over because I like to flip over the books that I haven't read yet. That way I don't forget to read them. These both are from Carrie Maniscalco. I hope I'm saying that right. But the first one is The Throne of the Fallen, and then the second is Throne of Secrets. So that is what is on shelf number 2. On to my next Romantasy shelf. I'm going to put Phantasma down here at the very end. Next to that, I'm actually going to put the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber, which, funny enough, is actually very similar to Phantasma. Oh, this one is by Kaylee Smith. I don't know if I said that, but this one's a great book. It's very similar to Caraval, but just like a darker version. And I personally enjoyed Phantasma a little more than I did Caraval. Caraval I did like and I enjoyed it, but that is where I met Jax. Jax, which leads me to my next series. Hold on, let me put these back. As I was saying, the series that introduced me to Jack was Caraval, and in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber, I got everything I wanted and more from Jax. Oh my goodness, I love this series so much. So this one I would say is in like my top 5 series of the Romantasy series that I've read. It is a YA series, so there's like 0 spice in it, but it is so good. Same goes for the Caraval series, also YA. No spice. As I was looking on Amazon to find trinkets for the Empyrean series, I was also thinking about finding some for this series as well. I was looking for some little cute foxes, couldn't find any. I was looking for like maybe an apple or an archer bow or, you know, something of the sort to represent like Jax and Evangeline. That's definitely something that I want to get next because I love this series. I fell in love with the characters. I bawled my eyes out. It was just so good. Speaking of bawling my eyes out and things being so good, that brings me to the ACOTAR series. This was my very first romance fantasy series that I ever read, and it is what started all of this, okay? So when I tell you that the ACOTAR series is my Roman Empire, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about at least one character or think of a reference or a quote or a meme that I've seen on TikTok or anything of the sort. It lives rent-free in my head. And so for that reason, this entire space that's next to it, this real estate, is for the trinkets and decor for this series. I actually bought a merch box on TikTok Shop. That is where everything that you're about to see is from. And I'll try and link it in the description if I can find it. But everything came inside of this cute little box that has a picture of Valaris on the outside. And I'm obsessed. My dream is to be able to go to the real life Valaris, which, if you know, is in Switzerland. And that would just be incredible. But anyways, this lives right here, right next to it. Also, the outside of the box says, "Hello, Feyre darling." Iconic. So the reason for why this series has to live on this shelf is because there's a shelf above it. And I need a shelf above it because I need it to hold up this next little trinket. So this right here is like the symbol of Valaris with like the 3 stars and the mountain peak. And this is actually made out of like wood. And I couldn't find a way to be able to properly showcase this without it taking up like real estate on the shelf. And so I thought, let me just put it on top of the box so that I can display both at the same time, but this doesn't have to take up any more room. So that is why I needed something above, so that I could kind of like sandwich it between the box and the next shelf. Another reason why I never placed my ACOTAR series on a higher shelf is because I have these bookmarks that I like to be able to read, and if they were up here, I would totally forget about them, never see them. Same goes for up here. I'd be able to see like the edges of them, but not the actual words on them. So this is why I chose this specific shelf for my ACOTAR series. This first little trinket, actually my battery's about to die, BRB. Okay, I'm back. So as I was saying, these little trinkets have different sayings on them. So these actually held a pair of earrings, which I do have over there where the rest of my jewelry is. I just don't have them on here, but it says cauldron, boil me, which if you've read ACOTAR, you know that's like a big thing that they say. They believe in the cauldron and whatnot. This next bookmark says, You do not fear, you do not falter, and you do not yield, which, if I'm not mistaken, were words that Rhysand said to Feyre. These bookmarks are really pretty. They're made of solid wood, but realistically speaking, they're not like thin enough to be actual bookmarks, so I just keep them on my shelf for decor. And then this one says, emotionally attached to fictional characters, story of my life. And this one has a cute little tassel. So these are the bookmarks and trinkets that I keep right here at the very front, so that I can see when I walk by. This next shelf has a mixture of books and some other little random things that I like to reach for. So the first two books that are going up on my shelf are these two, both from Rebecca Ross. The first one is Divine Rivals, and then this one is Ruthless Vows. This is a duology. The next book on the shelf is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I actually haven't read this one yet, but I'm very excited to. I've heard great things about this, and I do believe that a couple of the other books from this series are already out. So once I'm done with this one, I do believe I can jump straight into the next book, which I love. I love being able to like really dive into a series. Not that I don't like jumping into a new series, it's just that having to wait sucks, you know? Like whenever you fall in love with the book and then you realize it's the only book in the series, you have to wait X amount of time. You know how it goes. So it's nice to be able to jump into a completed series and just like really get into it. Although I do believe this is not complete. Next up, I have the Boys of Tommen series. I have books 1 through 7. I've only read the first 2 books, and let me tell you, this series broke my heart. Oh my goodness, the amount of tears that I shed reading this book. It was so good though. Like, I understand the hype fully. I totally get it. I do recommend this book series. Well, I don't want to say the whole series because I haven't read the entire series yet, but the first 2 books, solid. But definitely read up on the trigger warnings before you get into this, because there is some pretty heavy stuff in the first 2 books, and I'm sure in the 3rd and 4th it'll be just as heavy, which is kind of why I've put off reading it, because it was so much. So here are the rest of the books in the series. I'm just going to flip them over since, again, I haven't read it. I know it doesn't look super aesthetic having some of them flipped the opposite way, but it just visually reminds me to, you know, get to them. Now I'm going to place a bookend right here to hold the next 3 books that I'm going to place. First being the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. This series was also such a great book series. I remember that this one was like, I believe, my first really like spicy book series that I read. But that aside, they were really good books. The third one is my absolute favorite, Salome and Lucian, 10 out of 10. I also really liked the first book as well, Nox and Naomi. I didn't really care for the second, if I'm being so honest. I'm so sorry. But these two live in my head for sure. So I do believe that these are all the books for this shelf. Next, I'm going to add the little trinkets and things. So first and foremost, where is it? Hold on, let me look. Okay, here I have this little container, but I'm using it to store all of my annotation tabs because, like I said, I am an annotating queen when it comes to reading. I love to annotate my books. Funny enough, these have 0 annotations because I wasn't annotating at the time, but maybe I'll go back and reread all the books that I didn't tab so that I can tab them. Wait, that actually sounds really fun. A Court in Thorns and Roses was the very first book that I tabbed. From that moment forward, started tabbing all the books I read. That series literally changed me. It changed how I read books, the way I experience them, the way that I take them in and like absorb them. And it completely opened me up to the world of fantasy, and I've never looked back since. Back to what I was saying though. Here are where the annotations are going to be. Now, right next to that, I'm going to place my little reading journal, and then I have this little candle that will go back here. And then the last thing is this little pink macaron. I don't know where I got this from, but it's actually a little storage. You open it up and you can store things on the inside. That will just go right here. Everything's kind of like a jumbled mess over here. I do remember this one was at the very end. This one is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I started this book, I DNF'd it, but I do intend on finishing it, picking it back up, starting over from the beginning, because I have heard incredible things about this book. So many people say that this book has moved them in so many ways. People have gotten tattoos like referencing this book because it's just been that impactful for them. But that's going to be the first book that goes up on this shelf. Then here I have Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I do know that there are more books in this series, and I am interested in getting those books, but not anytime soon. I'm not like dying to get the rest of the series. I just really want to get through the physical TBR books that I have now before I start getting some more. But these are on my list for sure. But moving on, the next book that I have is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. This next book is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book got 5 stars. It is so freaking cute. Love it. These books just keep falling over and smacking onto the bookshelf every time I try and speak. So I'm going to fill up the bookshelf and then I'll walk you through what books I have on here. Okay, that's better. Now I can talk you through all the books that I have on here. I might even move some around, but like I was saying, I have Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, and you guys, this book made me sob my eyes out. It was such a beautiful romance, just so moving as well. And I don't know if it just like hit really close to home because I have a sibling who is deaf, and just reading about the struggles that they faced, it just gave me so much empathy. They really did something to me, okay? So that's that book. Next is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, which is another book that really brought me to tears. I'm a big crier, you guys. I am an empath. Anytime I see somebody cry, I automatically start to well up. I can't help it. I am very emotional. I'm a very emotional person, but you know what? I don't know how I became this way. Anyways, next we have the Twisted series by Ana Huang. I have heard so many things about this series. I really tried to get into it and tried to like it. It just wasn't for me. So I didn't pick up the second book in the series for a very long time. And then people online kept convincing me to get it. So I did. And I will say I enjoyed Twisted Games more than I did Twisted Love. I didn't really care enough to continue on with the series. So that's why I just have those 2 books. Next to that, I have the Kane Brothers series by Megan Quinn. This book made me LOL so many times. It's like watching a rom-com in your head. I'm not kidding. It was so funny. The banter between the characters was so good. Each one of these books has illustrations on the inside, and some of these illustrations are spicy, let me tell you. I did not expect to turn into one of the pages and be like, whoa. These books do have some spice, but here's a little wholesome picture. But yeah, there's like little illustrations throughout each of these books, and I thought that was really cute. I'd never seen that before, so it definitely caught me by surprise. Then from here all the way down to here, we have Elsie Silver books. The first series is the Chestnut Spring series. I actually still have to finish reading Reckless. I need to turn this one around, but I do really like this series. My favorite was Heartless. I think Powerless I really enjoyed as well. Jasper, I think was his name. Yeah, this one got 4.5 stars. And next to the Chestnut Spring series, I have the Rose Hill series. I have Wild Love and I have Wild Eyes. Actually, all of these Elsie Silver books are like cowboy romance. So I think that I want to move over Done and Dusted to this side so that it can kind of fit into the romance cowboys of it all. But before I do that, let me just wrap up with these last 2 books. So this next book is The Worst Best Man by Lucy Score. And this one reminded me a lot of the Spanish Love Deception. I feel like they had a lot of similarities. And then this next book that I have is Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I have not read this one yet. I actually want to read it next because I've been reading so much fantasy romance. I have not read just like a regular romance book in quite a while, so I think this one's gonna be next. It's either this or jumping back into the Boys of Tommen, but like I said, I don't know. I have to mentally prepare myself for that. Okay, so the Done and Dusted book, I'm gonna swap it with The Worst Best Man. I'm gonna move The Worst Best Man next to the Spanish Love Deception. Oh, also gonna turn around The Nightingale so that I can get to that one eventually. And now I'm gonna just put Done and Dusted over on this side. Okay, that's better. I like knowing that the cowboy romance books are over on this side of the shelf. All right, you guys, we've finally made it to the bottom shelf. This bottom shelf is a little bit of a miscellaneous shelf. It doesn't really have a theme going on. It's just all the leftover books that I had in my collection, but I did organize them by author. So let's go ahead and put them on the shelf, and then I'll just walk you through all the books that are on there. All right, so here are the books on this shelf. Like I said, they're kind of random, but I tried my best to organize them the best that I could. Most of these from here on this way are all seasonal reads, but any whoosies, the first book that I have over here is book 1 in the Shatter Me series. I actually really did enjoy this book. It was fun, it was exciting, it was entertaining, lots of action. It's like a dystopian romance series. Then next to that, I have a few Taylor Jenkins Reid books. Fun fact, she is the reason why I started my whole fiction reading journey. I remember reading this book and being like, wow, I can visually see this in my head. This needs to be a movie. This needs to be a series. This needs to be something, because it was so good. And it hooked me. The other books that I have from Taylor Jenkins Reid are Malibu Rising, Daisy Jones and the Six, which they actually had a show on. I think it was on Amazon Prime. I didn't like the show. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed the book so much more, so I didn't finish watching it. I watched maybe a couple of episodes and then just didn't continue. And then I also have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one was turned into a movie. I also saw the movie, did not like the movie. I have come to realize that a lot of the times the book is always better than the movie or the TV show. And it worries me because I know that they're going to be making a TV show for the Empyrean series. Everyone is going crazy about the casting and like, who are they going to cast? And people have so many opinions on who they think should be casted for certain characters. And I just don't know. Something tells me that like, no matter what happens, I'm going to get let down. But we'll see. If I like it, I'm going to be very pleasantly surprised. Moving on down the line, I have the only 2 thriller books in my entire book collection. Thriller is something that I actually really enjoyed. However, I'm a big wuss. I don't like scary movies. I don't do that kind of genre. And so thriller books I feel like are hard to find some that I would feel comfortable reading. But these 2 I really liked. The first one is Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Sanders. I actually saw someone recommend this book on TikTok ages ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. And I read it and I really enjoyed it. It was so good. Lots of plot twists, lots of turns. That seems to be my favorite word of this video. So good. Next, I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. I know so many people love to talk smack on Colleen Hoover, but you can't lie. This book was actually really good. All her other books, okay, yeah, maybe they're like cringe or whatever. But Verity was fire. So a thriller like this, I can get down with. I don't mind. It doesn't spook me too much. Like I can still go about my normal life. So if you have any recommendations for some thrillers that are, I guess, light thrillers, leave them down below. Speaking of Miss Colleen Hoover, these next books are all from her. I have Reminders of Him, November 9th. It Ends With Us, It Starts With Us, All Your Perfects, and Ugly Love. I do believe that Colleen Hoover was the second author that I got into at the beginning of my reading journey. So it was first Taylor Jenkins Reid and then Colleen Hoover, which is why I have so many of her books because they were super easy to read, very fast paced. And there was a point in time where she dominated like book talk. Her books were very popular. And so that is how I became influenced to read her books. Those are the books that I have right here. And then moving on to that, I have 3 Lori Gilmore books. These are the seasonal reads. This is where the seasonal reads start. So I have the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and the Christmas Tree Farm. I actually haven't read the Christmas Tree Farm. I didn't get to reading it over the holidays, so I will just get to it this coming holiday. I'm going to flip it around so I don't forget. But her other 2 books were really entertaining. They were fun, they were funky, they were light, they were funny. So I'm sure I will like The Christmas Tree Farm the way that I liked her other 2 books. Next to that, I have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston and The Dead Romantics. I didn't like The 7-Year Slip. I don't know what it was about it. It's not that I didn't like it. I just thought I would enjoy it a lot more than I did. The Dead Romantics, however, I kind of felt the same way at first. I was just like, meh, it's an okay book. And then like towards the middle and then the end, that like really changed it for me. And I don't know if it's because I read both of these in the same month that I just kind of compared the 2, and The 7-Year Slip just didn't hit the same way that The Dead Romantics did. So that's why I didn't enjoy it as much. But anyways, those are the 2 Ashley Poston books that I have. Over here, I have The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brianne Randall. I listened to this book on audiobook and I don't remember like being in love with the book. I kind of felt that way about all the seasonal reads that I read this past year. There wasn't any that like really stood out to me that I would feel like I would want to reread again. I don't know, maybe if I'm in the mood for it. And then The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I also read this one during the fall season, and that one was a cute book, like very found family vibes. This next book is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This one made me laugh. It's like a rom-com vibe. It was really funny, super easy to read. Also, it's short, not long at all. I enjoyed it, and I do know that they have a second book in the series, but I didn't really care enough to pick it up and read it. I think just because of the fact that I was kind of over the seasonal reads. Maybe this upcoming Halloween, I'll be in the mood and I'll pick it up. Then here I have a book that I haven't read yet. This one is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy This one was recommended as a seasonal read, but I did hear that you don't have to read it during any season. You can read it at any time of the year because it's not actually taking place in like a fall month. So I'm gonna flip this one around so that I can read it eventually. This next one I also haven't read. It's Heather Fawcett's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This one was actually gifted to me by my sister. I haven't read this one either. This one is giving me fall vibes and I have no idea what it's about, so I just kind of put it down there because it's a little miscellaneous, but this one is Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. Maybe I'll read this romance next since it's like short and I don't think it's a seasonal read. Then next to that I have How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. This book was super viral this past holiday season, so I did read this book. I read it both physically and on audiobook, and the audiobook in my opinion just made it more funny and more entertaining versus whenever I was reading it to myself in my head. I will say one thing though, that this book did have some spice in it, but the spice was a little awkward, at least in my opinion, or maybe that's because I was listening to an audiobook. I don't know, but it was making me cringe. Alrighty, you guys, and that is it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, for clicking on this video, for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it so much. Comment down below any book recommendations that you have for me based off of the books that you saw on my shelf today. I would love your recommendations. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell notification, that way you are notified every time I upload a brand new video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!